Welcome to the podcast. Today I want to have a deep talk with you, a deep spiritual talk that not a lot of people venture into. When you look and hear about what's being shared these days, we don't tend to navigate to the root of things. We're mainly focusing on the how-tos and the quick tips. And yes, we're starting to have those honest conversations about mental health, but really we're just scratching the surface. We can go much deeper. And I'm inspired to go there today because in the latest episode that we recorded, The Vortex of the Ego, we ventured into a topic that speaks to all of us because we all have an ego. And I tried my best to explain what I've uncovered, beg your pardon, what I've uncovered for myself as far as the veil, my own ego, and how it never served me well. And that's not from where I want to operate. That's not how I want to live my life. I don't want my ego to run my life, but I want my true self with a capital S, my consciousness, my soul, call it whatever you want. It's all the same thing. I want this part of me, the only part of me, to navigate this beautiful life that we get to live. I want to go a little bit deeper than that today, hoping to inspire you to go within for yourself and check, recognize, connect with your own energies, because that's what we're going to talk about. The dance of your own energies. The beauty of putting your work out there is that you get to interact with people and you get to have their own perspective. And that's where the inspiration for this podcast came. I read a comment about the ego, the Vortex of the Ego podcast. And I said, okay, now it's time. Let's go a little bit deeper so that we might bring this spiritual truth to light. So the comment was along the lines of embracing the ego and transcending it. And we can go much deeper than that. There's different stages that you get to play with your energies. So let's start at the beginning. And we're not going to go into deep science because I'm not meant to do that. But although I've read a little bit about it, that's not my thing. But I've read enough and looked into it enough to understand that great masters, enlightening beings that wrote things thousands of years ago have shared with us things that scientists of today are validating. You know, you'll read great text, great ancient text, and I've read a lot of them. And they'll say things like, the great masters, they'll say things like, oh, it's just light dance. It's just light dancing. The world, right? Our world, our existence is just light dancing, bouncing. They got to make a trip, a very deep trip, where they got to see that for themselves. And I'm not an enlightened being. I'm not a great master, but I've traveled a bit, inside. And yeah, I can relate to those sentences and to those expressions and to those truth that they've shared back then. What's very interesting, what's very, very interesting is that scientists today are revealing the same conclusions. They're proving, quantum physics is proving that there is indeed only light and energy out there. That's what we're made of. That's what is surrounding us. It's crazy to think, right? That whatever you see, whatever you touch, is actually energy. It's like it appears to be solid. It is, right? But yet it's just energy repelling each other and creating a mass. It's mind blowing. So energy is what we are. Energy is what we're made up of. And then, I mean, we can go and start asking ourselves, well, where's that source, of energy? And then, well, now we're opening the biggest question ever, right? And that's God. But let's not go there. Let's not go there. For now, let's stick to our own reality and what we experience inside. Energy-wise, when things go south. So to make the parallel between the previous podcast, which I'll invite you to listen to, The Vortex of the Ego, and the current chat we're having about energies. Let's juxtapose the two a little bit here for context. I was saying in a previous episode that our ego gets created very naturally as we grow up in life. I was using the analogy of glasses. Experiences come in as we grow up, and if we're kids, right? We're young adults. What do we know? So they never teach us at school how to deal with things inside. So things come in, events happen, situations, people say stuff or whatever. Things happen, right? It's a happening place. It's life. So things happen, and sometimes we don't know how to process it. We keep it inside. It becomes like an impression. That's how they call it in Sanskrit. Samskara. It's an impression. It leaves an impression inside. It's like a big blockage. And we create this. We create this via those events and people and situations that happen to us that we don't know how to deal with. And we then get to live our lives through the veil of our problems and how we see things and whatever stuff is inside. Well, that stuff is energy, right? And the most fascinating thing is that it's all the same energy. Whether it's going through and it's coming right out in pure love, or whether it's coming in and it's staying there, it's the same energy. But what we do with it changes its frequency, if you'd like, or its density. It's the same thing scientifically, right? The colors, sounds are just energy, same energy, but the wavelengths, the density is different. Hence, we feel, touch, and hear things differently. Same thing happens inside. Same energy comes in. We don't know how to let it go, let it through, let it flow as pure as it can be. We keep it down. We cling to it. We play with it. We do all kinds of stupid things with that. And that dense energy is there. It's stuck inside. Let me give you an image, maybe, to see this for yourself, if that can help. Sometimes the way I imagine this is I see a body in my mind. And imagine a part of that body as a big spiral. And that spiral is your blockage, is your stuff, is what you couldn't handle, is your sensitive spot, you know? That spiral is energy. It's always in motion. Energy can stay still, it has to move. In that case, those blockages, those bad stuff, it's moving in circle. It's like a big spiral, a vicious spiral. And it's just there. Keep in action right there. So keep imagining that spiral into a part of that body in your mind. And then see an event or a person or something that is being said that hits that spiral, hits that stuff, you know, whatever that is. This event, this situation, this person says something, you see something, you hear an action is being done, and it hits that blockages right there. Boom. And it just keeps on spinning and it stays there if you don't let it go, if you don't work with it. That's what's going to happen, right? It's going to hit that stuff. It's going to create emotions, thoughts. You're going to play with it. And from there, it's either going to be amplified, it's going to stay there, it's going to be released a little bit, or completely, you know, one of those things. But typically, the energy of the situation comes in, it hits the sweet spot, and we don't know what to do with that. The mind kicks in, the heart emotes, and we just these two, they play together, right? And you just keep it in, and that spiral just gets amplified, or you know, it becomes a bigger vortex. Then until next time, until the next time that something happens, and the same thing starts all over again. Well, that's suppression. That's what you can do with your energy. It's the lowest thing that you can do with your energy, and that's mostly what we do. We suppress those uncomfortable things that come in and that are hitting our blockages and our spot and our sufferings and our pains and our or whatever you can call it. And we just keep it there. We push it back down because we don't want to go there. We don't want to play there. We know it's hurting. We know we're in pain when we go there. We're suffering. So we either play with it, we feel the pain, we push it back down, or we know already that if we just dare to play there or touch it, it's going to hurt. So we don't even do that. We just shove it back down. That's suppression. That's one way to deal with your energy. Another form is expression. It's its opposite. It can be anger, it can be sadness, it can be depression, it can be victimization, it can be many forms, but you express it instead of pushing it back down and you know, you don't want to play with that. Well, you express it in the same dense form that it is. And typically it's not pretty. Whatever form that takes, expression can be scary sometimes. That's another stage. It's another layer. Then comes another stage where you understand it, you've studied it, you played with it, and you've mastered it, right? You think you've mastered it. And things happen, event, situation, people, whatever, hits your stuff. But you're like, I've done with that. I'm done with that. I've dealt with these things. Well, that's spiritual bypassing. It's another form that you can play with your energies. They're still coming in. They're bouncing off your stuff. And, well, you're pushing it away because you think you're done with it. But in reality, you're not. It's just going to show up again. That's fine. You soon enough, you're going to realize that, okay, well, maybe I haven't cleared the path just yet. So you're going to have to go back and explore and do the work around it, right? Then comes another form. That's what the comment was referring to. as far as transcending the ego. And that's beautiful. That's where real transformation happens. That's where you get to savor peace. That's where you get to savor a little bit more harmony. That's where you get to savor happiness. Because you've worked with it enough that it's transformed and you transcend this form of energy that you kept inside, that were your blockages and whatnot. But by definition, transcending is just a one, it's a round, it's a, how can I put this? It's a round trip. It's a round trip voyage. You get to transcend it, but you're also coming back at times. And so if we take the example of the ego, well, yes, you work with it, you transcend it, you transform yourself enough so that the veil of your ego is not running the show all the times like it's typically doing. And life is beautiful when you do that. But then something happens and whoops, we go back to that spiral because it's still there. And so we got to go a little bit deeper if we are determined to free ourselves from ourselves, if we want to be completely at peace. Jivan Mukta, they say in Sanskrit, or Nirvana, as the Buddha would call. If you want to be completely free, you want to be completely at peace, you have to go deeper. And that's where you transmute. The transmutation of the energy. Like you've worked with it, you've welcomed it, you transformed it to the point where that energy is transmuted back to pure energy. Like the event, the situation, the person, whatever that used to hit that stuff and that dense energy will still happen. Life is life, as you said earlier. It's a happening place. So something will happen that would have typically hit your stuff and that dense energy that you carry with you. But it's no longer there because you've transmuted it. You've let go of all of that blockages and that dense energy and that bad stuff that you carried for so long. And it's all clean inside. And from there, well, you can forget about that round trip. Now you're only on a one trip, and it's to even higher stages, higher places. So I'm sharing all this because I think having a comprehension and understanding of those stages that you can go through for yourself is helpful. The ultimate game is that you got to experience it for yourself. But at least comprehension and understanding gives so much insight and clarity and faith that I figured we could start there. Now, like I said, I'm no master. I'm not an enlightened being. I'm not even close to being enlightened. But I've traveled enough to share this. And if you're so inspired, well, I'm inviting you to go a little bit deeper and to explore this for yourself. We didn't go into practices or the how-tos or whatnot. I'm not that guy. I'm not this guy who's who's coaching and teaching on those practices that you can do on your spiritual path. There are plenty of people that are doing that. I'm the guy who wants to teach you and coach you about, well, what do you do when you're not doing those practices? And that's what we've been talking about today. You got to be really, really patient, really compassionate, and really conscious in this process of finding more harmony and peace and happiness for yourself. It's a hike. It's a very big hike where there's nice peaks and views, and then valleys, and other higher peaks and nicer views. But it's one that is worth traveling. I can tell you that much. I hope you have a better understanding of those stages and how you can dance with your own energies. Yeah. That's it. That's it for today. Go deep. Don't be shy. Travel that path. It's well worth it. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.